This video will introduce you to some of our participants and give you a glimpse of the creativity and passion that came out of our 10-month program.
It's when we give of ourselves, that is when we truly give. And I think, with our focusing work, there's a state of kind of being present to what's alive in us at the moment. And I think when we can connect with that place within ourselves, all things flow. And we don't really have to feel like we're having to think of what comes next, or we're having to worry what other people may think of us,
Just to encourage all of you that this is not school or an exam. That's what I always connect to. But it really is a sharing.
It's really about sharing something that you're passionate about, and it's kind of exciting to share that, and also to hear what other people reflections are on it. And it's always different than you think it will be.
This has been such an interesting group because things have been very alive and fermenting and gestating over a long periods of time. And we want to see what it made in you.
My takeaways from this experience of being together for the past number of months, and particularly with a lens and orientation for how do we organize groups. So just some sort of core tenets to start based on my experience of how normative organizations are currently organized. Another element is some people speak very verbosely, other people super succinctly. And some people are shyer, others are more outspoken. So again, going back to the piece of like, how do we share space and divide the time? And I really appreciated when we were talking about space, safety and edges, of how there needs to be enough spiciness so that there is like an edge to lean into where there's growth. But at the same time, if it's too safe, then it is too stifling. And I feel a lot of the edges, we're talking a lot about modulating edges for each other. And also there's group edges and also individual edges that need to be kept in mind.
What you mean when you speak about time and space, and it's the necessity of understanding, or at least being aware of it in relationships, has just been so powerful for me. So I want to thank you for whatever work you did to digest a whole bunch of stuff to come down to time and space.
And I just get such a feeling of lightness, and that if not wrong, bad. Thank you.
There is a kindness that dwells deep down in things. It presides everywhere, often in the places we least expect. The world can be harsh and negative, but if we remain generous and patient, kindness inevitably reveals itself. Something deep in the human soul seems to depend on the presence of kindness. Something intrinsic in us expects us. And once we sense it, we're able to trust and to open ourselves. And that says, really in words that I can't articulate, that I think there's been a lot of kindness in our force training. I think there's been a lot of kindness in the group. And I think there's been a lot of kindness in the back channels that people have and the contact that they've had with people. And I think kindness is really important to bring that kindness forward wherever I go, because I've seen how it has nurtured us in our group over our period together.
Force projects. Force met several projects that I have. sort of biggish and small, but it's like Force has been so inspiring to me that I've just really jumped in and fully engaged with several different projects. The first project is I've signed up for Anne Weiser Cornell's Focusing Certification starting in October. I'm super excited about that. The second project is the Anchors and Swimmers Focusing Exercises that was co-created by myself and some other group members. The Anchors and Swimmers Focusing Exercise is designed to be a safer way of going deeper into a focusing conversation in a focusing oriented group when there is conflict. It's a way for the whole group to anchor and hold the conflict and facilitate the group coming together using focusing. The explanation of the Anchors and Swimmers and all the rules will be on the project page of the website that Joe is kindly putting together. Another project is the Anger Summit, co-created by myself and another Force member and another focuser from a different group. The Anger Summit meets weekly for focusing conversation around anger. This is a current and ongoing project. Another project inspired by Force isn't exactly a focusing project, but it was inspired by a conversation I had with Isabel a few months ago. The project is to take a step away from cultural appropriation and towards cultural appreciation. The last project is the Marso project. The Marso project was inspired by Force as I was trying so hard to figure out how to get beneath my protector defender parts to the more vulnerable parts when wanting to connect with those I felt threatened by. My fear and anger were not the only players, and that there was a person who could respond when reached out to and do the reaching out herself. Reaching out and being reached toward created the conditions for healing for me in a very real way during Force. I thank the Force group for providing the necessary conflict needed to inspire an urgent need to overcome it, and therefore, clown. I'm not sure I ever would have been inspired in this direction had it not been for Force, and how difficult it was at times. The end.
I felt delight.
Monica, I'm kind of bowled over by all that what you've taken from Force and undertaken so many projects, but really doing them, not just saying I'm going to do them, but you really are, doing them. And I don't know where you have the time and the energy, but you do. And it's inspiring that you've done so much and are doing so much and making a difference for other people as well as for yourself. So I really appreciate that.
I experience that sometimes, like when you really, really laugh, like how that can really, it's like a storm going through your system and clearing everything up and making this space and making this energy pure from the laughing. So yeah, I like that part. Thank you.
Yoga, they say laughter is the glue that holds a group together, and it helps to dispel anxiety. It shows us that everything's okay.
As you were describing, Monica, the connection that you made and then learning the language, the phrase that came to me is living anthropology.
I hate to call my project because it's more my passion. I would say in 2007, I met a man named Jean Montreville, or Jean, as we call him, through Judson Memorial Church, where I'm a member of the community there. And he is a man who was from Haiti and came here when he was a young man. About Force and what it's meant to me is really getting to know individuals, seeing how we all have different ways of being, how most of us, I think probably all of us, are very vulnerable. I certainly am inside, and being able to listen. And so I just fervently wish that for this man whom I love, in a, I don't know, like a family member of family, because he is a member of our family.
I want to just thanks Jane for naming what's going on in Haiti.
Jane, I'd like to, your passion is so heartfelt, and it's so deeply resonated with me, how deeply you hold this whole area, but this very special man.
He says, so our problem is really quite new. Relating from how we genuinely are inside is new. No wonder we don't know yet all about how to do it together. How can both of us be present and live from ourselves rather than neither or only one or the other? That is a stage our society has not yet reached. It's a new territory. We are the ones who are working it out. Instead of feeling defeated by all the pitfalls, we can feel like pioneers. And I really felt like Jean was talking to us, you know, and it felt like we were sort of carrying that forward together in terms of, you know, figuring out how to do relating from this new place. You know, one of the things Jean talks about in some of his papers was the importance of training and the instructions for all those little skills. And he says, it takes training to know how to receive this sort of thing, to receive the feelings as feelings, and more importantly, to know for the person's deeper life forward movement that is implicit, even in ugly, poisonous stuff. Instructions for skillful little moves can seem the opposite of spontaneity, yet we use them to open ourselves precisely there where deep spontaneity comes. Listening training takes a while and can seem very artificial at the start, but soon it makes us more present and more closely related to clients and partners than our so-called close people. Now that listening and focusing are part of us, those don't seem artificial at home or in our organization, but we need quite a number of other skills to relate in our living spaces. You know, and he talks about how the focusing steps, at first they seemed kind of counterintuitive to have these explicit artificial steps, but then when you find it and it's there, then you no longer need the steps. Okay, so you have the curriculum that we're coming in, which is the focusing skills, but then the other half of the curriculum is sort of generated in the class itself. And then what I noticed was happening is like, we all experience, you know, we are interaction, we've always been in interaction with other people. And so we all bring this rich experiential, often implicit ideas of what it is and how we are in community. And so it felt like a lot of the other half of the curriculum was generated from that. It's bringing, and that became something that we were all exploring together. Many moments where, you know, like it was very explicit in the session about us and them, where people had their own experiences of being the them and then the us, and turning the themness into usness, and it felt like in a situation I'm in my old community, in the regular community, I can only operate from my own felt sense, and because most other people don't know focusing, I don't really have access to anything else, so I just keep operating from that place. And what I felt when I was watching the videos again was, oh my God, like this is this amazing richness where if people are operating with this in this focusing sort of way, I get access to all these different felt senses about what it feels like to be in community, and that really expanded my understanding of how to be in community in this focusing sort of way. So the process value versus conclusion values, where you just come in with preformed conclusions of values you have, and it felt like this, and the only way you can have process values is if you actually have experiences that generate that. And I felt like that's what we did. So even though at the beginning we had these skills, but towards the end, you know, we were all discovering together what our values were. And it felt like, oh, that should have happened at the beginning, but it couldn't, because it was a process value as opposed to a conclusion value. So we just didn't have the theoretical language to be able to hold the experience we were having, because we were doing it. We were actually like, you know, living. Okay, I'm done.
Wow. Wow, Shakafe. That was quite a mouthful and a heartful and a mindful.
Really, really grateful for all that work, all that heart, all that effort to digest. Yes, it feels like it's going to be very helpful to listen over to that. Yes, and I do want the exact places and papers and titles, but yeah, heck, chapter 8, damn. I'm just bowled over. I really think it's perfect as the last word. Like I'm so grateful. Wow.
You certainly brought his teaching alive with such energy, such enthusiasm, with such freshness, that I'm a bit like, I want to take out chapter 8 again and start looking at it and start.
I'm so excited about this, Shakafe, and I would sort of like who
Okay,
you are.
I'm done.
Wow. Wow, Shakafe. That was quite a mouthful and a heartful and a mindful.
Really, really grateful for all that work, all that heart, all that effort to digest. Yes, it feels like it's going to be very helpful to listen over to that. Yes, and I do want the exact places and papers and titles, but yeah, heck, chapter 8, damn. I'm just bowled over. I really think it's perfect as the last word. Like I'm so grateful. Wow.
You certainly brought his teaching alive with such energy, such enthusiasm, with such freshness, that I'm a bit like, I want to take out chapter 8 again and start looking at it and start.
I'm so excited about this, Shakafe, and I would sort of like who you are around the philosophy of Jing is a stewarder. It's a cultivator. It's a tending of the garden, right? With care and appreciation for every little flower, every little bud.
I feel also just resonant with what's been shared and grateful for your sharing during the break and all of this. I feel like what you did in your project was sort of, we're all in a stadium, like Yankee Stadium, or choose whatever stadium feels good. And then like you turned on the stadium lights, and then I could see things differently. I still loved being in the stadium, even though I forget to watch the game because I just like all that camaraderie. But then it was like the lights came on, and I could see so much, not just about our group, but about everything in a way. So thank you so much. I just feel like also very grateful.
Me to this group was the generosity of spirit of Lynn and the folks on the team who were going to give what I knew to be an enormous amount of time and energy and care over a 10-month period, which was not inconsequentially a COVID period. And so when I'm thinking about some project, what came to me was, what can I do that would in some way reflect a bit of that generosity of spirit? And then when I spoke with Susan about really what was the heart of what I was thinking about, what came forward was that I have a desire to be a blessing and to be blessed, to pay it forward. And one of the ways I enjoy myself most is just being with other people. And what I know in recent years in my life has been a blessing to other people, has been this process, this brief intervention called dignity therapy, where I help to train chaplains and doctors and nurses who go and have this little 1 hour visit with people who are chronically ill and who know what's going to kill them. And find a way to just hold the mirror up and say, wow, are you not the coolest thing? Well, I can say that one thing I've learned is that what's important in the very first question, what do you remember the most or think is the most important? When did you feel most alive? That immediately throws you out of autobiography or chronological time into a kind of a chronos, if you will, a time out of time. What is it that you want to be sure that they know and they remember? Well, that's kind of different maybe from what was in the first question. And so it makes a kind of a shift that the person has to make pretty quickly. So it's really it's a wonderful thing. And I'm just glad that I got to share it with those of you I did share it with. And
It's so wonderful, I think, for people at the end of their lives to have someone help them to put together something to leave. I think many people want that and don't know how. And that's what I found kind of miraculous and unexpected.
What does it mean that I leave a legacy? What does it mean that this group as a whole might leave a legacy?
Yeah, I was, as you were going through the questions, I was thinking, God, actually, not to take away from people's illness and that stage, if they're at such a value in those questions, even for me now.
That statement about growing down fits very much for me with the idea of a legacy, in the sense of the sense of a tree growing and seasons, and there are times at which seeds fall, fruits fall, and in some kind of way that helps me think about that. Legacy. Hit me when I heard that story. It of that experience of her experiencing herself, perhaps experiencing herself. Maybe she would use the word other, but other or othered and different, and as being the only person of color, and then that triggered I wouldn't call it triggered because it was not huge, but it evoked a memory for me of when I was about 7 or 8 years old. What was my first explicit experience of being othered as a Jewish boy at the school that I went to. My parents didn't send me to a parochial school. They sent me to, and this was in the mid to late 50s, and they sent me to a public school. And I had a memory of that kind of experience of being chased. I can still see the guys who were older than me chasing me, calling me a dirty Jew, and they were going to beat me up, and having to run and get over the fence to rescue myself and that. So I had that kind of experience, and it brought back other memories. Moving to a street 10 years after the war, and it was a street in which there were many people who were of my neighbors who were Holocaust survivors and who had numbers on their wrists. So I had that kind of remembering of that kind of that particular kind of othering trauma.